Really quick, if you haven't headed over to heroparanormal.com, please do. For the price of a boutique cup of coffee a month, you get all of the content behind the paywall. The whole enchilada, there's a ton of it. You can also access that content via Patreon. Just search for Hero Paranormal. And if you're listening to the podcast via YouTube, please, please, please like, share, and subscribe. It's the only way I can break through the algorithm of control. The shadow ban is real.
Come blast off in my time machine. Third eye feeling like it need Visine. Blast off, blast off, blast off, blast off. Come blast off in my time machine. Third eye feeling like it need Visine. Blast off, blast off, blast off, blast off.
Oh man, what a tangled web of deception has begun to unfold in the jungles of Peru. So yeah, get prepared to blast off on another epic episode of the Hyper Anomalous Esoteric Research Organization podcast, aka Hero Paranormal, broadcasting from the base at La Madre Mountain just south of Area 51. My name is Ryan, the paranormal pontificator of the airwaves, bringing you an unbelievable, seriously deep-pocketed, money-backed smorgasbord of unfortunate entertainment when it comes to these non-human entities and connections between Las Vegas, Nevada, and the jungles of the Alto Nanay in Peru. Now, I'm sure most of you remember the night Las Vegas police officers were called to investigate two unknown non-human entities which apparently fell from the sky at the end of April, beginning of May. This happened on the night of Beltane, which in my opinion is not a coincidence, and this was a very real ordeal. It has since kind of been forgotten about. People have chalked it up to a hoax because that's what people do. Yet, federal involvement has been widespread. That's all I can say. I have very good proof and have heard a lot of significant testimony from government employees and past government employees which have looked into the claims of a federal search warrant on the family, a federal gag order on the family, the fact that things seem to have gone completely flatline as far as the media, and as near as I can tell, of course, these are not coming from me. However, the information suggests that in July, a federal search warrant was obtained and a searching of the premises there, that household where the family was encountering non-human intelligence in their backyard. They went in and, from what I understand, spoke with the family, took a box out of the garage, a box or two. The actual the information is kind of getting more and more vague. A box or two out of the garage of documents, a couple of SD cards, one or two, and a camera, if I'm not mistaken. And I'm not going to BS you guys. I really believe that this is a possibility because we have heard nothing from Angel or his family since then. There has been a lot going on. Their lawyer has actually posted some things. And if you've gone to the home, as I have, there are actually signs all over the home now to stay away. Small, interesting yellow signs explaining what will be done to you if you involve yourself in researching or investigating this property. I have spoken to neighbors, and I have gotten information that neighbors also witnessed large, tall, seemingly non-human entities in the backyard. So for what it's worth, I believe there's something there. In addition, many people saw something. A nearby resident reported 100% non-human entity on their property. Not Angel or his family. This is a nearby resident. The interesting thing is that about 40 minutes after the original call, another man called 911 to report 2 unknown entities in his backyard after he and his family saw a similar object fall from the sky. So, this gets really interesting. The man said that he swore to God this was not a joke. He was terrified, and that there was an 8-foot person or something like that with large eyes. So, I mean, there are multiple accounts, and the police department investigated until they had to hand it up to more federally connected aspects of authority, including Homeland Security. I've heard it's gone all the way to the Department of Energy, a special group called NEST. There was calls made to Nellis, Air Force Base nearby, and implied calls made further up the food chain. Interestingly, where it comes to the reports of this unidentified aerial phenomena and non-human entities which seem to be a part of the encounter, a lot of things, in my opinion, rate 100% true. Angel and his family said they went inside, they did a prayer circle, and that they heard the 2 non-human entities running about their roof, very poltergeist-like, and very much in line with other reports and accounts that I've heard of encounters and contact with these non-humans. So, in my opinion, for what it's worth, I think it happened. I'm not screaming hoax, not at all. In fact, I've heard other varying accounts of radar telemetry data coming from high-up intelligence officers and ex-intelligence officers who are in contact with people currently working with the government. There has been significant radar telemetry data which was shuffled our way, and it supposedly said that these unidentified aerial craft were moving in a trajectory from west to east, actually northwest to southeast, and very similar to the old Kingman UFO crash, if you've looked into that. It originated, or at least began to be tracked around Bishop, California. It came over a top secret army base, or close to it, past Mesquite, Nevada, and in the direction of Las Vegas, Nevada, and then literally, possibly into Lake Mead itself. What blows me away about it going into Lake Mead is I went out there, investigated as much as I could with other researcher involvement, and in a motorboat. Luckily, the water level has gone down significantly at Lake Mead, which led us to find seemingly and apparently parts of a lost civilization down there, a covered structure, and other things on the banks that led us to believe some pretty wild things. I looked into them, and sure enough, there's not one, but 2 submerged towns under Lake Mead. If you haven't listened to my previous podcasts, they go into quite a bit of that, but to just do it really quickly, residents around the lake said that they saw an increased presence of military vehicles, helicopters, etc. around the lake. They seemed to be looking for something in the hours following the occurrence involving the 911 call, the UAP, and the non-human entities. They seemed to be looking for something. In addition, radar telemetry data that we gathered from what I believe is a good source said that it may have actually landed in 2 locations at the lake. These locations, interestingly, one GPS coordinate and the other are straddling, for lack of a better word, what is a lost city under Lake Mead. Sounds far-fetched until, even seeing what I saw and it sounded far-fetched until I did the research and found that there were actually reports of this. Before the lake was actually filled, before Hoover Dam was filled, there was large groups of people going out there literally as fast as they could, gathering as much data and evidence of this lost city. And it's ancient. It's an ancient city. And I'm not talking about the Mormon settlement known as St. Thomas, which thrived as a stopping point between Los Angeles and Salt Lake, although that is also under there. Yeah, there's 2 cities. That one's also under there. No, I am talking about a more ancient historic city. In fact, in 1936, there was a full article in a Nevada newspaper by John McClellan about the city. And it reads, "Ruins of lost city to be buried by Boulder Dam. Last traces of ancient race are doomed by rising waters which will inundate entire valley." And we all know that many of these ancient, amazing civilizations and cities were and have been rumored to have been constructed with the help of non-human intelligence. Now, what's interesting is there was a lot of information that was written into this article. I'll just read some of it quickly. And it reads, "Not merely one of the extremely old ruins found in the area of the United States, Lost City is a surprising superlative. It is the oldest known city north of the Mexican line, hundreds of years before men of the old world even dreamed the continent that is America existed across the sea. That was to them the edge of the world. A whole civilization came into being, flourished through several centuries, and vanished from the earth. One cannot wonder, then, at the feverish race against rising water that is being carried on near Boulder City. That insatiable curiosity about the secrets of the unknown which spurs on most scientific endeavor has seized upon the minds of even the CCC boys, who are doing their best, and the bulk of the excavation. Archaeological and historical experts of the National Park Service and the Southwest Museum of Los Angeles, who are directing the work, find it hard to restrain the desire to dig in hurriedly and save as many relics from the rising waters as they can recover." And anyway, I won't get into all the rest of it. It goes on and on and on. And apparently, this particular level that they found was a top level of a 3-tiered city. So this is an ancient city, absolutely amazing, with graves, grave sites, pottery, you name it, stunning photography in the article, and a city which was ancient. We saw some of the possible symbols and significant formations, myself and another, when we were at the lake on one run in a motorboat. Now, this is a vast lake. Lake Mead is a very vast lake. So we had to cover a lot of ground between these 2 GPS points. Interestingly, the 2 GPS points we received from an ex-government intelligence officer were straddling this purported lost city. So it would actually make sense if you buy into the possibility that some of these ancient relics, these ancient civilizations relied on non-human intelligence to build these vast, unbelievable structures, that it's possible that non-human entities would know about it and possibly enter the lake at those locations. That's exactly what was reported to us. We didn't know about the lost city under the water until afterwards. be that what it is, just throwing it in there for a little peppering, making the soup a little spicier. But as of now, that's the only correlation I have to where the radar telemetry says this unidentified aerial craft may have gone into the lake itself. And as we know, this transmedium ability of craft to go from air to water is something that really has the government worried. It has them, this is where they scratch their head possibly more than anything else. And you'll notice that the secretiveness when it comes to USOs or underwater submerged objects, this is where things really get classified and top secret, because the transmedium ability for these craft to go from air to water and back is something that cannot be explained with our physics. And it's something that is higher up on the totem pole of top secretness as far as a lot of these task force individuals are involved. So they don't even like to discuss that. And in the article, you may have heard the CCC, that's a Civilian Conservation Corps. They were part of the ordeal, as well as other Smithsonian-like entities involved in taking this stuff away. Amazingly, this information has been buried, much like the city itself, below layers of coverage, and you can't find much about it. But that happens all the time and is to be expected, so no biggie there. In fact, the entire ordeal in Las Vegas with this encounter with non-human entities seems to be hidden under layers and layers of suppression as well, quite hidden in and of itself. Even the radar data coming out of Harry Reid International Airport, and I got this from a source, don't quote me. However, when people have tried to recover the data from May 1st, May 1st, the night where this took place, the night and early morning, midnight, literally, Beltane, from the moment this took place until it was done, you cannot recover any FAA aerial data from Harry Reid International Airport, which was formerly McCarran. You cannot recover any of this data. It's missing from that moment of the event at the point of Beltane, midnight, to May 4th. You can get it after May 4th and including May 4th, but you cannot get, apparently from the source I spoke with, those particular days are missing. The data is gone. It may be suppressed. We're unsure. However, getting back to Beltane and the fact that there are 2 days in the calendar year where traditionally, from an esoteric perspective, ancient mystery school perspective, and the occult, 2 days when the non-humans come out. And by non-humans, I mean the demons, the goblins, the witches. And those 2 days are, of course, Beltane, sitting on one end of the calendar, and 6 months later, you have Halloween, Samhain Day. And these are the 2 dates, the 2 windows in the year opposite, opposed to one another, where these entities purportedly had 1 hour to come out and do as they will. Just so happens that this 911 call from this family in Las Vegas shows up right during that specific hour, during that specific day, during quite literally the witching hour of Beltane. Beltane has also, from an esoteric perspective, been considered the time when the windows open that these elite believers in ancient religions, millennia old, actually come out and do their rituals, do their esoteric works, because they are aware that the veil is thin and they can actually interact with these entities at that specific time. And it holds a whole lot of weight. Many know this, that May 1st, May Day, Beltane holds a whole lot of weight in traditional elite circles when it comes to the occult. So I don't want to go off on a tangent, but to not mention it would be wrong in my opinion. Okay, so we have the Vegas aliens, the non-human entities in this unidentified aerial craft using transmedium abilities, going into possibly a lake location where there was ancient civilization and possible ancient civilization aided by non-human intelligence. So what's the correlation with Peru? Well, Peru is obviously a place that has a history of ancient civilization, which is believed, at least in many circles, to have been aided by non-human intelligence. Doesn't stop there. As you know, Las Vegas, Nevada is known as a gold mining territory. Nevada in general is a gold and silver mining state. Peru is also a gold and silver mining territory. And if you follow the money, this is going to go down a rabbit hole like you cannot believe. We're going to get to that in just a minute. Zachariah Stitchin professed it was important to point out that non-human intelligence had connections to the Anunnaki, which arrived on Earth 450,000 years ago looking for minerals, namely gold. A scholar by the name of Dr. Michael S. Heiser, who holds a PhD in the Hebrew Bible and the Semitic languages, has something to say about this. The Anunnaki are indeed found in Sumerian literature, 182 times according to Heiser. Interestingly, they are connected to words such as Nephal, N-A-P-H-A-L, which has various interpretations, but also leads to the word Nephilim, to mean people of the fiery rockets. Now, the Nephilim were said to be giants, or larger than the average human, much like the non-human entities which have been encountered very recently in Nevada and the Alto Nanay of Peru. So we have that interpretation. Keep in mind that Beltane is when the quote-unquote demons or fallen angels, aka Nephilim, are given more ability to fly through or traverse dimensions and enter our reality. So we have the timing, which is an aspect. They are correlated. We have the ancient civilization aspect. Those are correlations. We have the semantics involved of fallen angels, aka aliens. Those are correlated. We also have two locations which are mining sites, specifically for gold and silver. Those are correlated. Now, when you do a little research into the Nephilim family tree, the Anunnaki arrival on Earth to mine gold and to repair the atmosphere on their planet, and their creation of modern humans as workers for their mines and to build their civilization on Earth, some serious technological abilities and capabilities come to mind. These implications that these entities would have technologies that far surpass our own is evident, especially when decoding information on the Sumerian tablets. Research has shown that these ancient tablets reveal a coherent narrative about the extraterrestrial inhabitants of Earth and the origins of modern humanity. Now, I don't mean to turn this into a whole DNA lecture, but when you really look at some of this stuff, the Sumerian tablets have a very coherent genetic background for the reality of whether the story of Adam and Eve may actually refer to these non-human intelligences tinkering with our DNA. Ancient myth suggests that whoever created us deliberately held back from us a certain thing, genes, DNA. They did not give us health, longevity, and the immortality that they had. So, what was it? In the Bible and other holy texts, they called it the Tree of Life. Truth is, for our lowly reality, it probably doesn't matter and we couldn't fathom it anyway. What does matter and has been agreed upon, however, is many ancient texts describe the fact that there were giants upon the earth, giants that were larger than humans. These entities had the ability for eccentric travels and unique technologies. Scholars in biblical languages have been baffled by these genetic cues. Not to mention the fact that they seem to play favorites. Much like the Greek gods that were spoken of, they would play this human game of chess, picking favorite characters, favorite players, and enabling them to do certain things. Many ancient civilizations have depicted encounters with non-human intelligence, giving them ideas, technology, help in the form of agriculture, fertilization, building techniques, etc. I mean, if you want to talk favorites, take the case of Noah. A non-human intelligence quite literally said to him, "Build this ship. Do these things. I'm going to kill everybody else." Sounds like God to me, and I would probably take that advice, just like Noah did. But let's get ancient on these goodies of knowledge, these tidbits of information, because there are some. Sumeria and Mesopotamia have a lot of hidden truths which seem to answer some of the more difficult questions about our nature, our archaeology, the science behind it all. I mean, isn't it all semantics? One says there is only one God, but he has a hierarchy of angels below him. Then others say there are multiple gods, demigods, etc., and one creator god above them. Couldn't this just be semantics? And why is our history so steeped in myth? Why are there so many accounts of non-human entities or the demigods of old flying around in technologies that we could not understand, utilizing things we had no idea about? I mean, the 3 wise men in the Bible following a star sound more like 3 top-tier intelligence officers of the highest form following something they knew about and no one else did. Something foreign, something cosmic, something godlike. Something the average people of the time didn't understand. Of course, there are more ancient characters as well. The remains of Nin Puabi, or known as Queen Shubad, have been analyzed, and keep in mind that she would dress in ornate ornamental gold outfits, gold jewelry, etc. The gold here cannot be understated. Is it possible that DNA may have been different then? Of course it is. Is it possible that these ancient demigods, if you can semantically handle calling them that, from another space and time, a heaven or a hell or other universally recognized dimension, were recorded by ancient Sumerians in a very credible fashion? I mean, manipulating space and time, even traveling at the speed of light, is no small feat. Most likely they were puncturing time itself. If these group of non-human intelligences, known as the Anunnaki, cross their own DNA with that of Homo erectus in order to create mankind, for the purpose of using humans as some sort of operative to mine gold and other minerals, we're doing a heck of a job, which brings me to the money train, the money situation, both here in North America, specifically through Canada, and Peru. Also, really quickly, keep in mind that humans had much snake worship, as in the case of Peru with Atahualpa. Many natives worshipped snakes and reptiles. Symbolically, as in the case of the United States flag, we have the eagle, he who comes from above, and in Mexico, the eagle, he who comes from above, with the snake in their talons. So those from the cosmos coming down and grabbing and killing the snake, which is of the earth. Manipulation from the Most High. Interestingly, the Anunnaki are scientifically usually portrayed as the creator of the human race, portrayed in numerous religions, and all leading back to the ancient Sumer writings, the literature found on the Sumerian tablets. Numerous religions find their roots back to Sumer, and the Anunnaki actually means the princely seed, or the royal blood. What have royals and every world power historically been after? Gold. Take the account of the Spanish going over to Peru and literally seeing how much gold they had. They knew they could not conquer the Peruvians. There were just too many of them. So they took their king, their leader, Atahualpa, and purportedly said they were just going to have discussions with him. Sadly, he was the last of the princely seed or the royal bloodline. He had no heirs. And so they killed him. Without a head, the snake had no direction. The Peruvian natives had no way to establish a hierarchy, no one to listen to, no one to lead them. The princely seed, the royal bloodline, was gone. And therefore the Spanish were very able to easily take their gold away, like taking candy from a baby. So let's get to the money. Let's get to the gold, and let's get to the mining. Because it all ties in very neatly to RS-22 and RS-23, military joint operations known as Resolute Sentinel 22 and 23, involving even the Space Force. But don't let me get ahead of myself. That's coming. The hint I will leave is that under the Biden administration, military is not getting the funding that they believe is necessary, and they are having to be a bit more creative as to how to fund certain projects. But we'll get to all that in just a bit. Let's get back to the ancient goodness of mining. And if you don't think that the Anunnaki history makes sense, the numbers don't lie. Basically, there are a ton of ancient Sumerian calculations from their civilization that ruled Mesopotamia and left behind exquisite detail, a narrative which is difficult to ignore the way it cohesively explains so much of our history as humanity. Even more modern civilizations, such as the Egyptians, have interesting tidbits, tantalizing breadcrumbs, with the math involved with the pyramids. Their coordinates are 29.9792458 degrees north. Interestingly, the speed of light is 29.9792458 meters per second. Coincidence, I guess. Interestingly, there's so many of these little breadcrumbs, these little clues, whether it is in Mesopotamia, Egypt, or other ancient civilizations. These clues are always present, these synchronicities, these coincidences. I could go on and on, but let's stick to the script. 100%, they are not human, said the family who had the encounter with the UFO and the aliens which crashed into their Vegas backyard. 100%, they are not human. These are the exact same words that the leader of the Iquitos tribe said in the Alto Nanay. 100% they are not human. Now, say what you will about people, we are all human. I know that people judge each other fairly easily and degrade them based on their socioeconomic status, their race, their religion, etc. But the bottom line is we're all human. So when humans in two separate locations say that they 100% recognize something else as not being human, I think that needs to be taken into consideration, not ignored. Okay, and we are all human, and we all work in areas where the dollar, money, the economy is what keeps us stable and maintained. So let's go over some of the money here involved. And I'm talking about the money involved in mining in Peru. This is by Canadian companies and others. Some are Japanese, and we'll get into the Japanese being involved in this military joint operation as well. But I'm jumping the gun. Let's get into the money. So, the investment in US dollars in Peru in 1 year, $21 billion. Billion dollars. Now, that's a lot of money. That is just the proceeds invested in Peru. And these are gold mining operations. Major corporate interests, some of which are from North America, Canada to be specific, as well as others in the Americas. So yeah, North America is not exempt from being involved in this massive cash flow. Cash flow going into the country, and cash flow, as we all know, which can politically motivate those in charge of the country. Not to mention motivate the mainstream news outlets. Motivation and money seem to go hand in hand like peas and carrots. And interestingly, the minerals mined are all the ones that seem to be of the most importance. We're talking gold specifically, silver, and then copper and zinc. But gold and silver are the two biggest. This much mining on this level would make for some happy Anunnaki, some happy non-human intelligence, some happy fallen angels if you want to corral them all into the same distinction, or extraterrestrials, whatever semantics you want to use. According to the Peruvian Ministry of Energy and Mines, Canada was the third most important investor in mine construction. Canadian companies invested over $8 billion. This is back in 2021. I'm sure I can only assume it's gone up since then. In 10 projects representing 15% of the total investment in mine construction in the country. Canadian companies were the second most important player when it came to exploration. Unsurprising, really, given Canadian companies typically focus on prospecting and exploration, representing 28% of the total investment in exploration, with $165 million spent on 21 projects. Canadian companies are also operating mines in Peru. Toronto-based Hudson Bay Minerals operates the Constancia mine. Vancouver's Pan American Silver operates the Shahuindo and La Arena mines. And Teck Resources, also headquartered in Vancouver, operates the Antamina mine, with a 22.5% ownership stake in the project. Antamina is Peru's largest mine, ranking among the top 10 producing mines in the world in terms of volume, and is the single most important producer of copper, silver, and zinc in the country. As Lil Wayne says, numbers don't lie, and neither do I. Now, these mining operations are massive. If you go online and you look at any of these companies, it's absolutely phenomenal. Bear Creek Mining, Hudson Bay, any of the ones I mentioned, holy cow. We're talking serious construction projects, massive operations. And where does this lead into Resolute Sentinel 2023? Well, let me get into this. Resolute Sentinel 2023, also known as RS-23. Resolute Sentinel 23 will be held in Peru and integrate combat, interoperability, and disaster response training, in addition to medical exchanges, training, and aid and construction projects. Oh, construction projects. We all love construction projects. They bring money, they bring jobs, they bring development. Okay, so the money's there. We know that the minerals, the reserves, and the resources are definitely there. The gold is there. In fact, there is so much gold that there are cartel-backed illegal miners picking up the breadcrumbs between these massive corporate operations. Somehow, These illegal miners have gotten all of the brunt and seem to be the easiest people to point the finger at when it comes to this alien encounter in Peru. It has to be them. I mean, they're the bad guy. Point your fingers at the bad guy. They're cartel-backed, so that's easy. They are running ragtag operations with tin roofs, makeshift gold mining tools, and heck, they're the bad guys, so blame them. Interestingly, the ones blaming them, the ones that have taken on this narrative, are mostly the Mexican-owned media corporations out of Peru. Most of them are owned by Mexican international corporations. Interestingly, Mexico is also involved in major mining operations in Peru. So, blame it on the bad guys. We have a scapegoat, a patsy. We don't have to deal with saying crazy things about aliens. And maybe things can go back to business as usual. But that is not the end of the story. In my search history and in looking for a lot of these government websites, I got an attention reminder. A pop-up which said you are accessing a U.S. government information system that is provided for U.S. government authorized use only. By using this, which includes any device attached to this, you consent to the following conditions. The U.S. government routinely intercepts and monitors communications on this for purposes including, but not limited to, penetration testing, cosmic monitoring, network operations and defense personnel misconduct, law enforcement, and counterintelligence investigations. At any time, the U.S. government may inspect and seize data stored on this. Communications using or data stored on this are not private and are subject to routine monitoring, interception, and search, and may be disclosed or used for U.S. government authorized purpose. This includes security measures to protect U.S. government interests, not for your personal benefit or privacy. So, I'm not sure what that means. It did catch me off guard. I was slightly scared, so I will tread as lightly as possible while still trying to disseminate and give you the information I found as safely as possible. This has to do with Operation Thundergun Express. This is an operation of the Space Force, part of Resolute Sentinel, a 21-day Space Force deployment exercise nested under Resolute Sentinel. Members of the 16th Electromagnetic Warfare Squadron worked with compatriots from the Ecuadorian and Colombian Air Forces to build mobile space detection systems in Cali, Colombia and Rio Negro, Colombia, and based their command and control in Lima, Peru. According to an AF South release, it was the first ever defensive space control operation in U.S. Southern Command history. Sounds like a pretty big deal. And after the warning pop-up I got on my computer, I'm going to be very careful to leave things out that might be seen as me being non-patriotic. So I've got to be careful here, but I'll go on a little bit. Resolute Sentinel is a 12th Air Force-led U.S. Southern Command exercise known as SOUTHCOM that was first held in 2021. Resolute Sentinel evolved out of the long-standing New Horizons and Beyond the Horizons annual joint humanitarian assistance exercises in Latin America or the Caribbean. Resolute Sentinel provides joint training and improved readiness of U.S. and partner nation civil engineers and others. Further down, it goes on to say that they will integrate combat interoperability. And this is where things get a little murky, because I have two different sources who have come forward with similar statements. One source is out of California, speaking with a retired intelligence officer, and what I'm getting is pretty scary stuff. Before we get to the scary stuff, let me just speak on the whole jetpack scenario. The fact that Peruvian mainstream media is saying that illegal gold miners are using jetpacks to scare the villagers. I think that's total BS, because the base price for a JB-10 jetpack, we're talking bare bones, bottom of the barrel, entry level is $295,000 US dollars. And for a slightly better one, the base price is $340,000. When you move up to the gravity packs and other packs, we're talking $500,000 to $1 million. So I think it's preposterous. Corporate gold mining interests? Yeah, maybe. Military? Yeah, maybe. Basically, I am being told that special operations forces have gone in and have interacted in a combative sense with non-human entities. And according to the source out of California, I gather that they do have a body, that it is human-like, but it is not human, and that it does have male genitalia. It is apparently being removed from the jungle and on its way to some secret lab somewhere. Again, I have no way to verify this. Pretty wild statements, pretty wild source information. One day later, I spoke with another source. He said that he and his wife had a mutual friend that was in black projects, special operations, and said that he had gone on multiple missions to the jungles of Central and South America on what he called kill missions, to kill, extract, and remove non-human entities. So that's two very strange sources of information, very close in proximity to me gathering the information, and yet no way to verify the information. However, indeed interesting information. What I can tell you is that Colonel Julio Chamorro, founder and former commander of OIFAA, the Peruvian Air Force UAP office, has said this, and I quote, "There is indeed a lot of open information about it. A conclusion about these events is that they have been happening for a long time. Perhaps it is related to the many legends, which would indicate this interaction, having to consider what the actors change or elements, technology and circumstances, but in reality, we are talking about the same thing that happened a long time ago and is repeated from time to time. It is very interesting from an anthropological point of view, and I couldn't agree more. I love when he says that this is the same thing in reality that we are talking about. This is semantics, whether you speak of legend, extraterrestrial, fallen angels, Nephilim, demons, dimensionals or plasma intelligences, reptilians, insectoids, mantids or demigods, greys or the Anunnaki. Semantics, semantics, semantics. We are talking about the non-human others, the watchers. And as in both cases, both the Las Vegas case and the Peruvian case, we have people who are authoritatively saying they are 100% non-human. That's what matters. They're 100% non-human. And humanity has interacted with them as long as we can remember. I love Chamorro's words. It's been happening for a long time. This interaction. So, yeah, it's very likely that we have troops in the area. Very likely that we have a variety of other international corporate interests in the area. Very likely that we have a joint operation with other military from other countries in the area. And according to my most recent information, which cannot be validated, It's possible that they are engaging in some way, shape, or form with non-human entities. The money's there. Whatever that comes out to be, I don't know. I'm not going to pontificate on that. But the money's there. Peru has a ton of gold. Historically, we know the Spanish went over. They took it from the Incas. There was a ton then. There is a ton now. We know that non-human intelligence and entities historically have been interested, purportedly, in this substance, in this mineral, in particular. We know that Nevada and this area of Peru are gold mining districts. The gold and the silver are there. And I love the former commander of the Peruvian Air Force UAP office saying, in reality, we're talking about the same thing, which repeats from time to time. Is it likely that the entities seen in Las Vegas are the same ones seen in the jungles of Peru? I don't know, but there sure are a lot of similarities. I have a feeling this case will continue to baffle us as the information comes in. It's far from over. I know a lot of people have given up on the Las Vegas case. Trust me when I say it's not over. I know a lot of people have already screamed hoax, giving up on the Peruvian case. As soon as they heard cartels and illegal miners, they threw their hands up and said, that's that. Well, I guarantee you, it's not over. We have major players involved, major corporate players, major military players, and heck, we even have Space Force in near proximity. And in my somewhat limited experience with guys in Space Force, I can generally say they are a good group of guys. Who knows? Maybe the military, the Space Force, and the like, as well as joint ops, are protecting people. It's above my pay grade. That became evidently clear when I got that pop-up from the government on my computer. I believe the government has things above our pay grade for a reason. One of those things that makes a lot of these cases easier to understand is the possibility that there are joint operations. And this was mentioned to me, and it's hard to wrap your head around, but consider joint operations with non-human entities. Let me just say the business of intelligence is being intelligent, working with what you can, working with all you can, doing all you can in every scenario, and being aware of the data collected, being aware of information, being able to throw pop-ups on people's laptops to warn them they're getting too close to things, or just generally monitor all databases and be able to change databases, and the fact that they are in control and can manipulate a lot of things. I mean, that's their job, I believe. Now, the following is from a guy who claims he was CIA, purportedly CIA, and he also claimed to be a man in black from the infamous group known as the Men in Black. According to him, his senior black projects director was William D. We won't say his last name. He claimed he worked under CIA Director James R. Schlesinger. William D. told him he was a perfect candidate for his new position. He had no relatives, and he was a foster child. He didn't have much of a social life to speak of, so it was easy for them to provide him with a new identity. After 9 months of what he called programming, he says he had become a man in black. What he later discovered is that not all the men in black were human. About a third were alien-human hybrids. It's stories like these that really open my mind to the possibilities. So maybe, just maybe, we are working with some non-human intelligences and working against other non-human intelligences. According to whistleblower Grush, we are in possession of UFOs and possibly aliens, or biologics, as he called them. All I can be sure of is a lot is taking place, and if you follow this type of scenario, when things synchronistically happen in correlation with one another and you have these coincidences, that means there is some truth to all of the events at hand. And what I can be sure of is the Las Vegas encounter. No way is it over. More will come out of this. The Peruvian encounters, no way is it over. More will come out of this. We have secret projects, amazing jungles, incredible correlations between the Las Vegas encounter and the Peru encounter. Similar descriptions, ancient civilizations, gold present in both locations, Space Force involved, military involved, and a military which is under budget right now. Gold goes a long ways, not to mention the corporate interests, but I won't speak to any of that. There is a fire within all of this, and it is burning brightly. More will definitely come about. And as far as the military needing to get creative to get more funding, I don't know how they go about doing that, but I will leave you with this.
We know there are two immutable facts with the President Biden's budget request for fiscal year 2024. First, Army does not have sufficient monies to support their Army modernization strategy. Extensive gaps in the fielding of the future of the Army are resident across the entire budget request, including procurement shortfall.
That's just to drive home the idea that, hey, our military does need the money, does need the resources. I don't know how these projects work, these joint operations with other military forces, with other political agendas, with other countries that have substantial natural resources, but it seems that, at least in my very limited view, you would want to make friends and defend people in those situations and scenarios when they needed it. You would want to work with those countries like Peru, which were rich in natural resources such as gold and silver. And you would want to have joint military operations with them, sharing secrets, sharing tactics, and working together. Of course, there are the corporate interests, with North American companies involved with gold mining in Peru, and you would want to secure those interests because, let's face it, everybody wins when everybody wins. I don't know, like I said, exactly how this all comes together, but there are a lot of different tendrils coming together right now. One thing I know is it's not going to get boring, so let's keep following what is taking place with these non-human entities and the encounters people are having around the world. There are a ton of correlations, and there seems to be a lot more in common than different. And really quick, if you haven't headed over to heroparanormal.com, please do. For the price of a boutique cup of coffee a month, you can access all the content behind the paywall, and there is a ton of it. You can also access that content on Patreon. Just search for Hero Paranormal. And if you're listening on YouTube, please, please, please do me a favor. Share, like, and subscribe to the podcast. It's the only way you can help me break through the algorithm of control. Although I will most likely never be monetized on YouTube for a variety of reasons, including the truth, that's the only way that I can break through the algorithm and actually have people hear, listen, and understand the podcast. The shadow ban is very real. Keep your eyes to the skies, feet on the ground, but don't forget to take a look around.
Come blast off in my time machine. Third eye feeling like an Evazine. Blast off, blast off, blast off, blast off. Come blast off in my time machine. Third eye feeling like an Evazine. Blast off, blast off, blast off.